Tuesday, November 19th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. November, Financial Literacy Month. So today on the show, we are talking about financial health and wellness. I've got some great folks here for the discussion, and we're asking you, are you thinking about retirement? Are you investing towards it? The lines are open. So today's conversation, we're going to cover how much it takes to retire. We're going to touch on some basic financial concepts, which is always good if you're me, because I'm not great on them. We're going to talk about the role insurance can play in all this, i.e. life insurance. And we got some budgeting tips, right? The holidays are coming up. It's good to keep your financial situation in mind, right? And the big question, right, for you, the listener, are you thinking about your retirement? Are you investing towards it? Why not? And for some, the answer is going to be no, right? Just asking that question may come with a sense of worry. It's not lost. I mean, just yesterday we did a show on the cost of living, and it can be really tough for folks out there right now and their situations. There's a big range. So when I ask these questions, I always, I assume that the range can be pretty big for the answers, and all those answers and all of your opinions are important. So if you want to join this discussion today, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206, or email us, thesignal@cbc.ca. And those questions again, are you thinking about retirement? Are you investing towards it? Right? Is this something on your radar? I'd like to talk to you. Here with me in studio, we've got Herb Stone, Donald Hookey, and Alicia Power, full-service independent financial brokers with World Financial Group. Folks, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
And Herb, you drove far to get here too, right? You get extra points today.
Well, thank you, Adam. Yeah, I drove 4 hours in the rain, but it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having us.
Look, thanks for coming in. Easy question first. I mean, they're all going to be easy questions. And like, as we're talking to, some of these things will be tips for you too today, everyone, right? Like as we go through basic financial concepts and talk about what we need to know, but then also I'd like to just hear where you're at when it comes to retirement. What's a financial broker? Who wants to go for it? Donald, what about you?
So basically, we have no bias towards any company or shareholder. Basically, we advocate on behalf of those that we serve, and we do that 100% complimentary. Brokerages, basically we broker on behalf of a bunch of different companies. So we have access to many different products and services, and that's why there's no such thing as a cookie cutter solution with a brokerage.
Yeah. So like, who are the folks that come to you to chat about investing and retirement and that kind of a thing? And I mean, I know the answer is probably like everyone, but like, what types of things are people come to you for?
Mortgages, investments, insurance, health and dental benefits, pretty much anything that touches a person's financial life, we pretty much can get access to.
So everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to say everything because it's not everything, but yeah.
Almost.
But almost everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So
there's an ongoing joke that our senior business partner, who's actually a retired police Edmonton police officer. Okay. He says we're like the Amazon of the financial world.
Okay, right on.
It's not that I like saying that we're a one-stop shop, but basically we kind of are like a one-stop shop.
There's a big inventory of what you can talk about and do and that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Well, then tell us, I'm always curious. When I have guests in, I always like to know about who folks are and kind of like why they are. Like now, I mean, we don't need to get too deep, but just tell us, Alicia, let's start with yourself. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I lived in Port Rexon most of my life, grew up, moved to St. John's, went to high school and whatnot, didn't go to university or anything. Hooked myself a job actually working here in St. John's as a medical communications officer, so it's like ambulance dispatch. Recently promoted there to a team lead position. Mm-hmm. And I've been working there for going on 4.5 years now. And Uncle Don actually approached me going on 3 years ago now about this business. And I didn't really think about anything financial in my life. I didn't know what it meant to retire. I didn't know what it meant to save. And that's kind of scary to think about it. What was it, 24 when I started? So it really put into perspective about what like I needed to do. And I jumped right into the business immediately after he showed me the presentation. And yeah, it's just, it really opened up my eyes to what I can do and what I can bring to people here in Newfoundland and Labrador and show them it doesn't matter what age you are, you can start whenever to kind of set your life the way that you want to do it.
So what are you, 27 now, 28?
27, yeah.
So you're 27. Okay, so when I was 27, everyone who listens is sick of me saying how old I am. So I'm 44 now, folks, in case you need a reminder.
Still a young pup.
Right? Still a young pup. But when I was 27, I was not thinking about retirement because I was like, that's something that older people think about. I don't need to think. But then the funny thing was so as I got older, I finally got a CBC job, and then all of a sudden, like as I was approaching 40, and now as I'm rounding the corner towards we'll say my mid 40s, it's like, oh, retirement is on my mind. And what comes next, and what it all means, right? And like you look at some colleagues who retire, people in your life, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is obviously a really important thing, especially where a lot of us tend to live a little longer now. What have you learned from being 24 to 27 with this life change of yours about other than yes the importance of it, but what are a couple of things that you've learned around this?
How much I'll need to actually retire the way that I want. That's the biggest thing. I didn't think it would take as much money as what it will, but it's nice to have that perspective now so that I can start putting that money away. I can start preparing my life. Like, I didn't have these conversations with my parents when I was younger, or grandparents for that matter, but it's nice that I could get into this business myself to educate me, my family, prepare my future, talk to all of my family about it now because they aren't the ones that educated me, but now I'm the ones that are educating them, and they're all older than me. So that's kind of scary to think about that, like, people don't know about this.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing was preparing for retirement. The other thing was insurance. Like, I didn't know what insurance was until I started in a government position. And it really got me thinking a lot more when I started to hear about what I actually needed. What am I protecting? What am I investing in? What do I need in order to get where I want to be?
Okay. I'll circle back to some of this stuff soon, but let's go to Uncle Don. Donald, tell us about yourself. I mean, I know little bit about you, but give us the deets on
so I'm originally from Port Rexton.
Right.
That's where I grew up most of my life. I'm ex-military, so I served in both the Navy and the Army. Yeah. Had a couple of tours, one with the Navy, one with the Army. Yeah. I did a Persian Gulf tour in 2001, January to July on the Charlottetown. Afghanistan in 2006 from January to August, and I also was a part of the Swiss Air recovery crew on board the Preserver back in 1998.
Wait, that's back. I
Can't
believe how much time is, because when I first got in, I knew folks who, when I was in the reserves at Cabot, I knew folks who were on the response. Anyways, just thinking of how long ago that is now.
Yeah, I've actually got more time out now than when I actually had in.
That's wild.
Yeah, medically released. So I mourned the military loss. Basically, I was mourning my military career because I thought my identity was my career.
That's such a common thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is hard to kind of, I think that's a big lesson for folks to learn, but that takes a lot for a lot of former service members.
I did leave disgruntled because I wasn't ready to leave.
And I think that's part of that too.
Yeah. So I didn't finish my full 20. I only got 16 years in, and I was medically released. So then I went back to school here at MUN, actually, and College in the North Atlantic, and I got my degree. I actually walked across the stage in my 40s.
Yeah.
So you're never too old to learn, and you can teach an old dog new tricks. And I was approached by now our senior business partner out in Edmonton a few years back, and basically I was looking for a purpose again. I wanted to be part of something that was bigger than myself again. I wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted to see what potentially I could do to help myself, my family, but also my community. I love volunteering. I always have. I volunteer with many different organizations across Canada. But a big thing for me is seeing a smile on somebody's face, no matter how minute of what I did to be able to put that smile on. That is a reward that no money can ever, there's no money that could ever give me that reward. And what I'm doing now with World Financial Group, I feel like I'm volunteering, but I'm getting very well compensated for it. Financial industry is one of the highest compensating industries in the entire world. And this brokerage is one of the highest compensating companies in the country.
What was so to go from the military, and like I've got a little bit of experience with it, but like also friends who were reg force and stuff. I know, like, you know, military wise, it like being part of that group feels like everything's taken care of for you. Where you're going to move, there's someone to move, there's like that. So you have that feeling, and then you're out into this world of like, I'm not there anymore, and like I know some folks really struggle with that adjustment. But so on the financial side of it, what was the learning lesson? Like, were there any big learning lessons for you to go from? And I know with the release and everything, there's some layers of what is available and what's not, and things have changed. But what was it like for you for the financial learnings?
Well, when I was being released from the military, they did say to have. Well, we're going to talk about that too today as an emergency fund, basically having 3 to 6 months of gross income put away into savings for the rainy days. But the military, when you're leaving, it could potentially take up to 3 to 6 months for your pension paperwork to be straightened out, depending on how much of a mess your career was paperwork-wise. But mine was straightforward. I was still over 6 months waiting for my pension. And my wife and I, we almost lost our house. I'm not going to lie, we were in a bad financial situation. And I wish I would have known this information back then. And so now taking this education approach to informing people about these financial things that they should know, this is a no-brainer for me. I do have a goal. This is something, too, about our brokerage is that they promote self-growth and wellness, not just for ourselves, but our community. And one thing for me is a goal that I want to an end goal for me is to actually open up a charity here in Newfoundland and headquartered out of Newfoundland for military, first responders, and their families to reconnect, because I've seen what organizations that are out there in Canada and the programs that have actually been able to bring me closer to my family. I know I'm getting emotional here right now, but
it's good because
this is stuff
it's emotional.
It's stuff that I care deeply about, and I don't want to see anybody else going through the struggles. It's a goal to get that charity started, but there's also a little bit of a selfish reason, because we actually have a charitable trust attached to our brokerage. So any agent within World Financial Group that raises money for a charity, our charitable trust matches that dollar for dollar.
Wow.
So basically the charity's getting double.
All right, Herb, let's go with yourself. Tell us about yourself. I mean, we talked about the drive-in, and again, thank you for this. But tell us a bit more.
Sure. Well, in case you haven't figured it out by now, we're all family here. In addition to being wonderful business partners, we're all family. But 3 years ago, I was very happily retired. I had retired from a very successful career as a medical radiation technologist, 36 years. The last 12, I was a CT specialist with the Newfoundland government. And I was quite happy to retire, and another career, let alone in the financial industry, was probably the last thing on my mind. And so I got a call from Donald, and he was just asking to help out with his training. And of course, I agreed. He's family. I help out, but I thought I knew everything there was to know about money. It's pretty basic in its simplicity. You work, you get a check, you cash your check, you buy your groceries, and you rinse and repeat.
Yeah, and you try to have more coming in than what goes out, and then hopefully other nice things happen.
100%, but Don said something at the time that kind of resonated with me, and I still use it today. And I told him at the time I was going to steal it, and I have many times, and that is, you don't know what you don't know till you know it.
Yeah.
So I kind of reluctantly agreed to sit through one of the presentations, and after listening to him and our now senior business partner, I was awestruck. I really didn't know what to say at the time. I didn't even think I knew enough to ask questions, and so
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it was like part of me didn't even want to believe some of this stuff, because I thought I had this concept of what I believed financial was. I thought I knew it all, and it turns out like I was at a kindergarten level and didn't even know it all my life.
Yeah.
So I hung up the phone, and I slept, the whole night. I just kind of dwelt on this, and I was thinking. And the next day I called him, and if I had heard this from probably any other person, I would have disregarded it as, just somebody trying to sell me something. But I have so much respect for Don and his integrity that I knew that if he tells you something, you can take it to the bank.
Yeah.
So I called him, the next day or a couple of days later, I said, look, listen, this Vic Pipke guy is like, is he for real? And, and Don was like, yeah, he's the real deal. So I just started immersing myself into the whole financial deal. I started learning as much as I could, and I became excited about it. I became almost evangelical about it. I was preaching to my kids, I was preaching to my family. And so much. They used to joke about me being like an evangelist, but I just wanted to share the message. So much that the last thing I need right now is another job. But this is not like a job; it's a passion. To bring this to younger people who, may not be concerned about the prospect of retirement or be concerned about the financial stability of insurance, and to older people who are sitting on the fence right now and thinking, like I got 3-4 years left of retirement, I'm not going to be ready. Like I want to help those people. So it's. For all three of us, I think it comes from a deep-seated desire to help people and to make people aware of the options that they have to create a better life for themselves and their families.
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today we're thinking about retirement, and we're asking, are you thinking about it? Are you investing towards it? If you want to join the discussion, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206, emails thesignal@cbc.ca. I've got three folks with me in studio, full-service independent financial brokers with World Financial Group, Herb Stone, who we're just listening to, Alicia Power, and Donald Hookey. We got a note in from the emails. Let me see. I started investing when I was 16. I started with small amounts and then progressed from there as my income improved. Dad got me started with it. This was before personal computers, so I had to read and research the information from the Financial Post, the Globe and Mail, the Financial Times, and the Telegram. It really paid off well as I was able to retire comfortably at age 46. I've only got 2 years. I have my own house and car, both paid for. It requires a lot of patience and research. Thanks, Gary. I should have gotten in touch with you a few years ago for my tips. All right, so then if someone's coming towards you, what do you need to think about when it comes to retirement? What's the conversation like?
Well, the first thing that you really got to think about is your financial independence number.
Okay.
Yeah. So this number is the amount of money that it would take for you to retire the way that you want. So that number is obviously going to be different for everyone.
Sure.
But something that I guess people don't really think about is how much that actually may mean. So let's say we take an average couple. They want to eat in retirement, right?
Eating is important. Yeah.
So 3 meals a day, and we'll be on the cheap side and say it's $5 per meal because we all know inflation is crazy these days. And they want to eat every day, 3 times a day. And average life expectancy, so let's say they retire at 65, we give them 20 years to live. So they need that for 20 years. That's $219,000 just to eat.
Just to eat.
Just to eat.
And like we're talking like not expensive
not
meals
expensive
either, right?
meals.
Yeah, no one's, you know,
you're getting a McDouble and that's it.
Yeah, you're not getting no caviar with these.
So that doesn't include like your traveling, dining out. If you have grandchildren, you don't get to spoil them. Your medical expenses, like nothing else but food. So people really need to like take a step and realize, well, like what they actually need to retire. What do you want to retire? Like, do you want to travel? Do you want a car? Do you want a house? Do you want grandchildren? What do you want to provide for them? You know?
Well, sorry, let me use the cough button for a second. For preparing for this show, like I was just thinking too, it's okay. So in your retirement, I mean, let's say typically a lot of folks need to drive. Right? The new electric vehicles coming out are not exactly cheap, and a lot of times people say, "Oh, you know, but you get your house paid off." I'm like, "Sure," but last I checked, the taxes, right? City taxes are not cheap. Right?
Yeah, that's still something you have to pay after the house is paid off.
So you're paying your taxes all the time. You're paying your car insurance. Like there's stuff that is like the bills are not there anymore when you retire. So you still have all that plus eating and all that kind of stuff. Like but I could see like it just feels like a lot of money.
It does. I didn't realize mine was so big.
Yeah.
But when I spoke about what I wanted to retire like, and that was sitting down with my uncle, Don, who's here with us. I sat down with him, went over what we call financial needs analysis. So it talks about, when do you want to retire? What do you want to do when you retire? What's like your important goals? Do you want to have a house? Do you want to have a car? All that important stuff. So we sat down and went over that, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that I needed this much money to retire. How am I going to do that? Because I want to retire when I'm like in my 50s. How am I doing that? I don't want to wait till I'm 65. You don't have any life to live then.
You got 20 years. You said 20 years.
Yeah, right. I want to be a young retirement. Like I see my parents now, and like all my parents are in their 50s, and it's just scary to think about. Like I don't want to wait until that point and still be working and not be able to enjoy my time with my kids or future grandchildren and stuff like that. Like I want to be able to have that time available to spend with them and do whatever I want, take them places and not have to worry about asking for time off, because we all know that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
In certain positions that you're in. So
how do you how do you start? What do you do? Like I know like some people, if you're lucky enough, maybe if you're working with the government, or there could be a pension. For other folks, if they're working, if they're entrepreneurs or there's no pension, then you're trying to pay into your own. I mean, of course, there's like old age pension that you can get for because we're in Canada.
Yeah.
But in order to bolster the retirement money that you can get, like what are the steps that you folks think what are some suggestions that people should explore, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, it could be different for everyone.
Yeah.
It all kind of depends on what they need. So I'd say come talk with us. But if you have your own financial broker or whatever the case, sit down and talk with them about like what you want in retirement. And they can bring examples to you of what you might need. It could be insurance. And that's something that Don will actually get into in our what we call financial house. It could be an RSP. It could be a tax-free savings account. Anything where you can kind of put your money away so that you can retire the way that you want.
Okay. Well, Don, let's talk about that. What is it? The
financial house.
There you go. I was like, I was about to say, let's talk about the house thing. I mean, like, let me stay on topic here. The financial house, like you're saying.
So just like a regular house, we always want to start with a good solid foundation, because the storms of life may come by, premature death, disability, a disease. So we want to make sure that our foundation is solid. So in case those storms do come by, it doesn't blow our house down. Because I don't think a lot of people realize this, that we are an asset ourselves. if we're a main breadwinner in our home and something happens to us that we can't keep that same steady breadwinning income, what do we do?
Well, yeah, well, like this was part. We were talking about this yesterday too, and I brought up an example from a year ago when we were at doing a show from the food bank in Carabinier. I was talking to someone who had a business, lost the business because of health reasons, and was having to go to a food bank. And there was a big discussion yesterday. Like, I mean, there's talk about stigma, pride. There's a bunch of stuff that we covered. But the point being, for this discussion today, it's like for a lot of folks, one thing can be life changing, and then the question is, where do things go now? If especially if this was the breadwinner for the household.
Yeah, and that solid foundation is actually insurance products. Right. Insuring ourselves, not just life insurance, but there's living benefits, disability insurance, critical illness insurance. We also deal with things like estate planning, funeral planning, wills, that sort of thing, making sure that you got all your T's crossed and all your I's dotted for your life. Because if you don't, not having a plan, well, I mean, you can just imagine how detrimental your life can be if you don't have a plan put in place. I mean, most people are just, I know when I was younger, like you mentioned before, when I was in my 20s, I definitely didn't have a financial plan or any kind of plan put in place. It's just basically live day by day, and whatever happened.
Like, so when I first got in because they make you fill a will out, right, when you join the military.
Yep.
I still remember. Like, so this is where my headspace was. Okay, and I again mentioned this one other time before, but so they're like, oh, welcome to the military, kind of thing. You're now in the Navy. Here's your will. You got to fill it out. And I left a good friend of mine my stereo system because that's all I had, right? And when I do shows like this, it reminds me I need to update that will because like that stereo system doesn't exist anymore, and I actually own a couple things now, right? So like, what should when people are like sitting down and you go through your day to day, week to week, you're in your bubble. What's the importance of like, when do you think people should just sit down and take time for like this type of planning? Like now.
Yeah, basically. Garth Brooks said it best. Tomorrow never comes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We focus on the now.
Carve out the time.
Yeah.
Carve out the time to think about, to talk to, whether it's someone like yourselves or, like you said, if you have your own broker, or also there's there is help out there too that can be free that you can find as well in our community for looking at whether it's what insurance is for you or what like for estate planning for your will and like all this type of thing. But like with that type of planning, then it's not an emergency later and like it can help you out.
Unfortunately, when reality hits you in the face, it hits you pretty hard, especially if you don't have a plan put in place. The solid foundation of having insurance products put in place, I know there's not too many kids that are out there that say, I want to be an insurance salesman when I grow up. Not an overexciting thing, but our senior business partner is actually kind of clarified this for us because we call him the Yoda of the financial world. Not our senior business partner, but another gentleman who's been in the industry for over 40 years. Yeah. He's out of our office, like the Edmonton office that we run out of, he's got the most death claims paid out. Mm-hmm. But basically if somebody passes away, there might be a knock on the door and there might be somebody with their hand out. Creditors, they still have to pay their bills. Right. Whether that person's coming back or not to be able to pay those bills, they're knocking on your door looking. But as a broker, we're knocking on the door with our hand out, but it's not empty. It's got a check in it. It doesn't bring the person back, but it can potentially take away that financial stress of not being able to pay all those creditors back or that sort of thing. And he actually, our senior business partner, his very first death claim that he ever paid out was his own father's. Wow. So not only did he get to see the agent side, but he also got to see it from the client side. Yeah. So he got to see the stress taken away from his mom and not having that financial burden anymore.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is in that kind of a situation.
But then we talk about the sexy stuff, how we grow money.
Go ahead.
where we put our money, how we invest.
Yeah, so go for it.
So I know when I was growing up, my dad was always like, you need to open up an RSP so you can get some money put away so
Sure.
you can buy a house.
Yeah,
that
sounds
was
familiar.
my goal,
Yeah.
buy a house.
Okay.
But a house is not a liquid asset. You can't rip a doorknob off and go buy groceries. I don't know. There's not much of a barter system out there anymore.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like until you go to sell your house, it depends on the market.
Yeah.
So if the market's down, you might not make as much. And we tell there is a difference when it comes to houses and mortgages. We tell people there is a difference between mortgage, life insurance, and life insurance. One protects the bank, one protects you and your family. That's when we sit down with people, that's when we go in depth into that. And then we tell people about the different ways to invest, but we also teach them about the different taxation. We call them investment vehicles. Those investment vehicles are things like RSPs. There's a thing called an open account, which is a non-registered account, TFSA, insurance tax shelters. Every single one of those investment vehicles, you can put the exact same investment passengers into those, whether they're low risk, high risk. I've had people, like I ask them if you have any investments. They say, I have investments. Yes, I have RSPs. When you ask them what it's invested in, it's in RSPs. Yeah, but what's it in? Is it stocks, bonds, GICs, mutual funds, or segregated funds? And most people, unfortunately, don't know.
Yeah, because it sounds so complicated, right? You're like, oh, I've got RSPs. I'm fine. We're just like, I don't know what's in it. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, so that's where we come in. We teach people about the differences between those. But the taxation in them, like an RSP is the highest taxed investment vehicle in Canada. Most Canadians know about them. A good portion of Canadians have them, but still they don't understand how they properly work.
Yeah.
You do get a tax deduction when you put it in. It grows tax deferred. And when you take it out, all of the money, everything that you put into it and everything that it grew is 100% tax. Put $100 in and it grows $100. So you take that money out, you're paying taxes on $200.
And is the thought because like a lot of folks would take those out as they retire, so there's less, they've got less money.
Yes.
It's just a lower amount.
They have their place.
Yeah.
They definitely have their place. Then there's next one next to it is basically what's called an open account. So it's a non-registered account. So there's still some rules and taxation around those, but it's similar to capital gains tax. So it's only 50% of the growth that gets taxed when you take that money out. So similar to an RSP, if it's done correctly, you can potentially get a tax deduction. It does grow tax deferred like an RSP, but again, when it's taxed, it's only 50% of the growth. So if $100 is put in and it grows $100, you're only paying taxes on $50.
So then if I'm coming into you, like what's the difference in the discussion for like, okay, one as opposed to the other? Because like when you say less taxes, I'm like, oh, sure, sign me up. But there's like, we're talking about a toolbox for looking at, for, same for retirement and everything else. How do you, like, what's the conversation like for the different tools and why they're there?
The needs and wants of the individual.
Okay.
Everybody's individual financial situation is unique to them. My situation is even different than my wife.
Yeah.
Because your financial knowledge, your needs, your wants, your goals, whether it's family or individual, I mean, everybody's financial situation is so unique.
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today we're asking, are you thinking about retirement? Are you investing towards it? If you want to join the discussion. And, if the answer is no, you can still join the discussion. 709-722-7111. 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206. Email thesignal@cbc.ca. Here with me in studio, three folks, full-service independent financial brokers with World Financial Group, Donald Hookey, Alicia Power, and Herb Stone. We've got from the text line, I'm soon going to retire. I wanted to do the responsible thing as a single female, so I recently contacted a financial advisor to get some direction and help. The company representative was eager to get my business, but when it was discovered I had some savings and investments, but was not prepared to switch everything to their company, I was dismissed. I found it difficult to get objective advice and information for me personally unless I agree to invest everything I have with them. Thoughts on the
Wow.
yeah.
That's wow. Yeah, my face was like taken back just then.
Wow. Our job as a financial broker is to educate people. We're here to give people proper information so they can make good, sound financial decisions so they can secure their financial futures for themselves and their families.
Yeah.
It's their money. It's not ours. We're here to build a relationship between those that we serve and the companies that we broker on behalf of, and to educate people in those products and services. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
And I think it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just blown away by that statement.
Yeah.
You know, as an agent, I guess, with World Financial Group, we would never kind of pressure anybody into one particular avenue. You know, we're just here to help people as they go.
And I can only imagine, if you're someone who's curious about stuff, right? And just for the statement that I just read from the text line, like it can be daunting enough, right? When it's something that's kind of perhaps outside your wheelhouse. Like I'll say, like it is for me, right? I find talking financial stuff can be it can be difficult. My head's not great at wrapping around it, and so to go to someone and then to feel that type of pressure, that would be I could see that being really stressful. Right?
Yeah, that's really sad.
All right, so. We've been talking about the financial house. We've been talking about the different ways to invest and how it can be different for everyone. What if you have a lot of debt, which is a lot of folks nowadays? What's the conversation to have around debt?
budgeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time budgeting. Yeah. Teaching people. I know we talked about this before, Adam. Coffee, for example. I did up a spreadsheet on the different pricing on coffee.
Yeah.
Like a medium coffee at Tim Hortons and McDonald's is the same price, but you buy the same coffee at Starbucks or Second Cup or Jumping Bean, it might be a little bit, even 1 to 2 cents difference. And then even just buying instant coffee or a K-Pod and making coffee at home, it's even that much cheaper. So, yeah, just brand name stuff or non-brand name stuff. You look at the ingredients on it; it's the exact same thing. One costs more because it's a brand name.
Yeah, and it's the importance, like, and doing the pre-interviews too, like the importance of looking at what you're spending in the run of a month, right? Like, keep track of it, look at it, and then decide, okay, where do I make that change? Because on one side of this, there's the discussion that's happened in the last decade, making fun of younger folks being like, oh, you want your avocado toast, and this is why you can't buy a home. It's like, well, that's not the reason, right? Like, homes across Canada are a lot more expensive than they used to be, especially in a slightly different conversation here in this province, but Toronto, Vancouver,
take Nova Scotia,
right? Yeah, no, off the charts now, right? Like, it massive change in the last few years in Nova Scotia. So there's not that, but at the same time, if it's the avocado toast, the higher end coffee, the let's go out and eat a couple times a week or multiple times in the run of it, like you can start seeing how stuff can add up, especially if you're not keeping track of it.
Absolutely, and we're living in such a world of convenience right now that it's so easy to just pop into a coffee shop and get a coffee. You know, it's only $1.25 for a coffee or whatever. You know, we swipe our card and we forget it, and we don't realize at the end of the month how that $1.25 here and $1.25 here and $1.50 here adds up.
Tap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so
remember when credit cards came out and they brought in the PIN numbers because they're like,
Right.
oh, security is important, and you're like, and I was like, this is so annoying. Then all of a sudden it's like, no, now you can just,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it all starts with, you know, it would shock you to write down everything. For example, in a month that you spend, you know, if you put 25 cents in a gumball machine, you know, write it down. And at the end of the month, just go through it and just see where you spent your money. It would shock you. You know, my wife and I did this, you know, a couple of years ago, and we thought, you know, we spent very little money on eating out.
Yeah.
And we were shocked that over a 3-month period, we were averaging over $400 a month in just restaurants alone.
Yeah.
And we were totally shocked over that number. You know, if you had asked me how much do you spend on restaurants a month, on average, I would have probably said, I don't know, $100. And but when we wrote it down and went over it, you know, we just couldn't believe that we had spent that money. But it's there in black and white, and you know, you can't deny it.
Yeah, so keep track of what you're spending. Have some thought around, where your money's going. Look at and have some discussion around what like is important to you, and also like within realistic. Like some folks, it's going to be, well, I don't have much money, and there's no way to stretch it, and that's one conversation. And then if you have a little bit more, then like you change it. Getting control of your finances is one thing. What do you then do with the debt? If you're like, what's a good approach? Like, is it like as you mentioned before? Is it debt stacking? Is that
Debt
what it's
stacking,
called?
yeah,
What is
it's
that?
a term. Basically, it's learning how to pay off higher interest debt so you're faster. So basically what you do is you take all your minimum payments every month.
Yeah.
The things that have higher interest, if you have extra money, make sure you throw it on the higher interest first. Once you get that paid off, get rid of it.
Yeah. So if I've got some credit card debt and it's the juice is like 19% or something like that.
Oh, if you're at 19%, you're pretty lucky.
Oh, so yeah, or more.
Yeah, I've seen some credit cards out there that are up in almost 40%.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that could. So
Because of unfortunate.
pay that off.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So like the higher interest stuff, try to get that down, and then I guess there is a conversation there about perhaps debt consolidation too, right? Like depending where you can move stuff to and whatever else.
Yeah. When we sit down with the average family, we try to free up anywhere between $500 to $2,000 in the run of a month. Like I know when I did my financial plan, we freed up about $900 a month by just consolidating our mortgage and putting some other debt in it. Not saying that's for everybody. That was my financial
but
situation.
This is an example, right?
Yeah, and basically what we did with that then is we properly protected ourselves. We went and got properly insured.
Yeah.
And we basically now we have critical illness insurance as well. So if we do have a disease or we get ill, that we're now fully covered properly the way we need to be to make sure that if something detrimental happened, we're good to go.
Yeah, because I think the underlying advice for this whole show is like, sit down, look at your finances, see what you're spending, see what you want to be spending, and also have a conversation around is there insurance that might be for us? What are we thinking about for retirement? Where should our money be going? What are our options? But as you folks have been saying, it's about taking that time to even just start with that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can be difficult for some people too. Like that, it's a scary conversation to have with someone that you may or may not know. I mean, some people are more comfortable talking to people that they don't know, so that they're not judged. But I mean, you just got to get there to talk about it and figure out what you want to do. If not, you're just going to be living the same repeatable life over and over. And is that really what you want to do?
Are there any lessons for? Because one thing is like we brought up in the beginning of the show. If you start investing younger, I mean, that obviously could be better, right?
Yeah.
But then if you're someone who's like, well, it's really, I've got this debt. I'm trying to figure my way out through that. Future's not looking too rosy. How do I even think about retirement? Is there a conversation to be had around even just trying to squirrel away like a tiny amount for the future? Like what's the conversation there like?
Yeah. Well, just to further what Don said earlier, when we sit down with the family, most people don't have X number of dollars to squirrel away.
Yeah.
And most people live
inflationary times we're living through. Like it's because we talk about like on this show we talk about it a lot, right? How expensive things have gotten.
Yeah, I mean, like 20% of Canadians don't have any money squirreled away. And almost half of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. Most people don't have that disposable income to squirrel away into an RSP or a TFSA. So when we sit down with a family, we don't approach it with a slash and burn approach. We don't go in and say, okay, listen, you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. That's got to go, and you can't go to Tim Hortons for your coffee. That's got to go. We sit down, first of all, and we look at where we can save money in your existing budget. So typically, if you look at people's budgets, half of the money go towards living expenses.
Yep.
A quarter will go towards debt. A quarter will go towards taxes. So we try to find existing money there. How can we help you save on your taxes?
Yeah.
How can we combine high interest debt into low interest debt? How can we use debt to, not all debt is bad.
Yeah.
Some debt can be good. You can use debt to leverage investments to actually create profit. Tons of people have done that. To create a nest egg of their own using debt. So we don't go in with a slash and burn. We first get to know our clients, see what's important, see what their wants and needs are, and then we try to find money in their existing budget from their debt, from their taxes. Maybe something that, that's not important to them and their wants and needs. And then we work within that.
Right, and then push through.
Absolutely.
And help folks. Yeah, because I guess there's all, you can look at, for some folks, there's a conversation, if you're able to, there can be a conversation around paying down your mortgage, or it's like, well, actually, can you maintain just the regular payment and use this other money for somewhere else? And there's a conversation there to be had as well, right?
Yeah, mortgages are actually good debt.
Yeah.
Credit cards, of course, are bad debt.
Yeah, right, credit card. So, yeah, and I mean, if you can, it's good to try to, like for example, we pay ours off every month, right? We don't keep credit card debt because I didn't even know about the 40% thing, so that just it scares me.
People with bad credit history and stuff like that, of course, they want to try to get their credit back, so they agree to have majority of their monthly payments going towards interest.
And as we talk about, again, like cost of living, today the inflation ticked back up to 2% in October, and I believe it was I think fruits and veg, or fruits and beef, I think it was, still went up by 8%. Or even though things have cooled with inflation, there's still a story of costs going up. And then, we're having a discussion about retirement and investment, and just trying to, and like you said, you're just trying to figure out where do you free stuff up. And again, we already talked about this earlier, but there's only about 7 minutes left in the show here. With the holiday season approaching, it can be stressful. There can be lots of wants and wishes. What's the approach for tips around the holiday season? And again, I'm assuming it's part of the write down your costs and keep track of what your expenses are, right? Yeah. What else is there?
Again, just like name brand to non-name brand.
Yeah.
Sticking to a budget and setting a limit.
Yeah.
That's not a big thing. I have an X amount of dollars that I spend on each person for Christmas. And, it's kind of hard. You go out into the store and you see, oh my God, that would be so cute for this person. They would really like that. But you got to have that willpower as well. Willpower is discipline. It's a big thing when it comes to
credit
budgeting.
cards when you can.
Yeah. Alicia, for your friend group, are others on the same page as you, or are you an outlier?
I have a mixed friend group,
okay.
we'll say.
Right.
There are some that are very disciplined, the same as me. My now husband wasn't disciplined at all. So if
my wife is listening, she's like, "Yeah, I understand that."
I get that. So I've had to teach him a lot of things, and most of it has honestly been taught since I've joined World Financial Group.
Yeah.
He's sat down and listened to the presentation, and he listens to my uncle, and he's come to understand okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we need to do this.
So what changes other than so there's the investment part which we talked about. What types of lifestyle changes have you brought in since having more financial literacy?
So honestly, it was the year that I started with World Financial Group. We just bought a house, that April, and I started in November.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a little, oh my God, I don't know what I need to do. I started on the wrong end of the financial house. I didn't have any investments. I had nothing. Yeah. So I was like, I got to start somewhere. So the first step was to start budgeting. What is our money going towards? What are we actually needing? We had 2 vehicles. We're down to 1 right now. And life
That's
works.
a lot of cost saving right there.
That's a lot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was saving us $700 a month right now.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Other factors like groceries. We were spending a lot of money on junk food.
Yeah.
And not properly eating. And when you spend money on junk food and that's all you're eating, you're not actually getting full.
Yeah.
But when you're actually spending the money a little bit extra on your healthier, fulfilling foods, you feel full and you don't eat as much.
Yeah, I used to have an opinion of if I wanted it, well, I want it.
Yeah.
But that's not the best opinion to have, because now, like, so like on my financial end, like we'll look at like if for meat, chicken, whatever,
Yeah.
seafood, like if it's on sale, we buy it. If it's not
Yeah.
on sale, unless it's like my birthday, it probably like I'm probably not going to do it, like, because it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Like just the financial, like just the expenditure there for the week to week.
And that's another
it
thing that I
doesn't
do,
make sense.
meal planning.
Yeah.
Like I plan my meals every week, buy my groceries for the week, and like that is my goal to,
Yeah, and
to
again,
budget everything.
It's sitting down, looking at what money do we have, where's the money going? So the 3 squares a day. Can you is there the investment conversation to have? Like, is it 1 vehicle or 2, or is it public transit? You know, whatever. Like, but just looking at all of it to see like where it all goes to keep track of it.
Exactly.
Because if not, it's really easy to be on your 4th or 5th fancy coffee perhaps of the week, and be like, oh, that's actually, I could have gone to see a movie with this, or whatever, right? Like, or I could just squirrel that money away.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Tuesdays are cheap night at movie theater.
Yeah, and it's just to be aware of stuff, right? To be aware of because it all adds up.
It does.
As we wind down, any final thoughts for folks, or advice, or just thoughts from the financial conversation we've had for the last 50 something minutes?
They can reach out to us. We have a team website here, teamrockstars.ca. You can message any of us. We have another team member out in Gander area, so and we do information sessions every Monday evening at 7:30 Newfoundland time. So it's done over Zoom. So basically, some of the stuff that we talked about today, we talk a little bit more about in depth.
Yeah, and you've done it with schools and legions and stuff too, right? I mean,
A few, we did a cross island tour back in June, and actually our senior business partner Vic out in Edmonton came here, and he actually did all the presentations for us across Newfoundland. We did 6 locations in 3 days.
What are the responses like for that? Like, what do people say when you're, because financial presentations, like, okay, I got it. Yeah, it sounds good,
the feedback's been
Yeah.
pretty fantastic. Actually, they were like, "How come this isn't taught to everybody?"
Yeah.
It's unfortunate it's not, but we're here. Reach out to us.
Yeah, so there, you can see the hunger for this type of info, and info where people know where it's coming from. Because yes, like I've been saying lately, but without, like, I used to say just Google, but now I'm like responsibly. Because
Doing research, but doing proper research is different.
Yeah, there's a different range.
And of course, the thing to remember, with us, either one of us or all 3 of us, is that any advice we give or any information we hand out is always completely complimentary. You'll never receive a bill from World Financial Group or either one of us.
Yeah, it's just advice.
Yeah, it's just free advice, and you can take it, or we'll give you whatever you want, but you'll never ever get a bill.
Yeah, and folks, I appreciate the conversation for just, it's a way for, I think, to understand just what conversations are important, things to consider, where things can go, and what that all can mean for a basic household or an individual or a couple or whatever else, because, there's a lot to think about, but it's awfully important.
Absolutely.
Safe driving now. You going back to the beer and after the show, or are you staying in for a bit, or what are you doing?
No, we finished our Christmas shopping. I joked last night that I did my Christmas shopping in 9 minutes last night. I broke a personal record. So
9 minutes is pretty good.
9 minutes in and out of the store. So as soon as we finish here, we're going to head back down to Burin Peninsula, and I've actually got a client I'm planning on contacting this evening to work through some insurance.
All right, folks, thank you so much for the conversation. So there you had Herb Stone, Alicia Power, and Donald Hookey, full-service independent financial brokers with World Financial Group. That is it for today's show, everyone. If, as you're listening, if you got thoughts for us, we love to hear them. So you can call the Signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. Or you can email us thesignal@cbc.ca. And, yes, the year is kind of going to be winding down soon, but there's shows we'll be planning for January and beyond. So if you have show suggestions for us, we love them. Tomorrow, completely different show, completely different topic. We're talking about university students, right? Post-secondary student leaders. And we're going to talk about the big issues and concerns on campus this year, and campuses. and what those solutions might be. So I've got folks from MUNSU, Canadian Federation of Students, and the Muse all joining me for that conversation tomorrow. Don't miss it, only on The Signal. Thanks.